The scent of roses and frosting filled the kitchen, heavy and sweet, masking the sharpness of Allison's words. She stood near the counter, veil pinned up as if she already owned the day. Her voice cut through the room with practiced ease. "The greatest gift for our wedding would be if you disappeared from our family." She said it lightly, as though suggesting a change in flowers or cake flavors. But her eyes held no humor. I looked to Daniel, waiting for him to laugh it off, to defend me, to remind her of everything I had done for them. Instead, he lowered his gaze, gave a small nod, and twisted the cap off a bottle of water, like the conversation bored him. A hollow ache spread through my chest. I thought of the house in Norfolk, the Victorian Robert and I had bought the year he returned from the Navy. We had stripped wallpaper until our fingers bled, polished oak floors until they gleamed like honey. For decades, it was where birthdays were celebrated, arguments forgiven, and Christmas mornings began before dawn. After Robert died, its rooms echoed too loudly. When Daniel and Allison spoke of buying a home in Virginia Beach, I convinced myself that selling my house was part of moving forward. $92,000 from my sale became their down payment. I told myself it was love, told myself that by giving them a future, I'd always have a place in it. But standing in their kitchen, listening to my son's silence, I understood how quickly memory can be rewritten. My sacrifice had become some money once, my presence a blemish on their perfect weekend. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. Instead, I folded my arms and let the words carve themselves deep. Something inside me shifted. Not broken, but reset, like gears finding a new alignment. If they wanted me gone, I would leave, but not in the way they imagined. Already, the outline of a plan pressed at the edges of my mind, waiting for the right moment to surface as I turned and walked quietly toward the stairs. When Robert and I bought the house in Norfolk, it was more ruin than refuge. The porch sagged, the plaster crumbled, and rainwater pooled in the basement every winter. Still, he had looked at me with that grin of his and said, "We'll make it ours." For 30 years we did. We scraped wallpaper until our arms ached, sanded floors on our knees, planted azaleas out front that bloomed bright pink every spring. That house carried our fingerprints in every corner, a testament to work done together. After his death, I wandered those rooms like a ghost. Every creak of the stairs was his footfall. Every draft through the windows felt like him reaching for me. The silence grew too loud. When Daniel mentioned wanting a bigger place for his future with Allison, it felt like a sign. Selling the house broke me. But I told myself it was for love. The check I handed him, $92,000, was more than savings. It was my life's foundation. In return, they promised I would always have a place. At first, I believed it. I moved into the guest room, though I never called it mine. Allison corrected me the first time I did. Guest, not mother. Guest. Because guests eventually leave. I tried to ignore the small slights. When the utility bill came up short, I paid it. When Allison's card was declined at the grocery store, I slipped the cashier my debit card. When Daniel's car broke down, I signed the repair invoice before he asked. Each time I told myself it was temporary, that young couples stumble before they find balance. But years passed, and the stumbling never ended. What began as love slowly hardened into expectation, and expectation grew into entitlement. And still, I kept giving, believing it would secure my place in their world. Until the day I heard Allison's words echoing like a verdict in the very kitchen my money had built. I folded my clothes into the suitcase with steady hands, each shirt reminding me of another debt they had long forgotten. I moved quietly through the guest room, pulling open drawers that had never felt like they belonged to me. The suitcase lay open on the bedspread, its zipper catching the light. I folded each blouse carefully, Not because I cared about neatness, but because I refused to let them see me flustered. If Allison expected tears or shouting, she would be disappointed. Their voices floated up the stairs, clear and careless. "We can turn it into a yoga studio," Allison said, her tone bright with ownership. Daniel murmured something I couldn't catch, then added louder, "An office might be better. I could finally have a quiet space." They weren't even waiting until I left. The room was already gone from me in their minds, repurposed, remodeled, stripped of the woman who had kept it warm for 6 months. I folded a cardigan Robert had given me for our 25th anniversary and set it gently in the suitcase. Beside it, I placed a framed photograph of him in his navy dress whites, the one that had sat on the nightstand since the day we moved here. I pressed my thumb against the glass. "They won't erase me," I whispered. "Not from this house, not from our history." The voices below rose again, laughter punctuating their plans. The sound of 2 people who believed I was powerless. That belief gave me a strange, steady calm. For years, I had lived as a guest in their world, paying silently, smoothing every rough edge so they could pretend their life was perfect. Tonight, that role ended. I closed the suitcase, the click of the latches louder than their laughter below, and straightened my back. The insult had been delivered, the verdict spoken, but I still held choices they hadn't imagined. Downstairs, the clinking of glasses signaled another toast to a future I was no longer invited to share, and I carried the weight of Robert's photo, as if it were a compass pointing me toward my next step. I wheeled my suitcase to the car parked at the curb and sat in the driver's seat with my hands gripping the wheel. The porch light glowed behind me, illuminating the house I had helped purchase. A house that was now no longer mine, at least in their eyes. I stared at the darkened windows until the ache in my chest hardened into something sharper. Then I reached for my phone. Caroline Vega answered on the second ring. "Marjorie, it's late. Is everything all right?" I drew a breath. "No, Caroline, it isn't. Daniel and Allison just asked me to disappear. I think it's time we revisit the documents from when I sold my house." Her voice steadied. "Do you remember why I insisted we formalize that transfer? You didn't give them $92,000 as a gift. It was structured as a loan, with your name placed on the deed. You are legally listed as a co-owner." The words sank in slowly, layer by layer. "Co-owner," I repeated, as if testing their weight. 35%, she confirmed. "You're also recorded as co-borrower on the mortgage. That house is not just theirs. It's yours." For months I had walked on eggshells, apologizing for taking up space in the guest room, believing I was indebted to them for shelter. Now the truth stood before me in black ink and courthouse seals. They were indebted to me. If I wanted to sell my share, I asked, my voice calm, almost detached. "You would have every right to force a sale," Caroline said. "They'd be offered first refusal. But if they can't buy you out, the property goes on the market. The law is clear." I looked once more at the light glowing from the kitchen window, where laughter still floated through the walls. They thought I was gone already, but they had no idea how deeply my name was etched into their foundation. I thanked Caroline, ended the call, and rested the phone in my lap. For the first time in years, I felt steady. Tomorrow, they would discover just how present I truly was. Morning light broke over Virginia Beach as I sat with coffee in the Hampton Inn lobby. The contract folder spread open on the table before me. My signature stared back at me from the pages, the one for the Cavalier Golf and Yacht Club reception. $14,000 committed to a night of champagne fountains and swan-shaped ice sculptures. All of it tied to my credit card. My name, my responsibility. I dialed the number listed at the top. A cheerful voice answered. "Cavalier Events Office. This is Denise. This is Marjorie Calloway. I need to cancel tomorrow's reception. A pause. Papers shuffled. Mrs. Yee. Calloway, that's a wedding of over 200 guests. Food is prepped. Staff scheduled. Are you certain? Yes. I understand the penalties. Please process the cancellation immediately. Another pause. Then a sigh of resignation. As the signee, it is your right. We'll forward the final invoice. Send it to me directly. I ended the call and sat back. Just like that. The castle Allison had been building on my dime collapsed. I could almost hear her shriek when the staff informed her. For once, the weight wasn't on my shoulders. Upstairs, I ordered room service salmon, asparagus, and a glass of iced tea. When the tray arrived, I carried it to the window and watched traffic glide along Pacific Avenue. The fork felt lighter in my hand than it should have. Each bite was seasoned with a satisfaction I hadn't tasted in years. For too long, I had traded dignity for inclusion, footing bills so I could cling to scraps of belonging. Now, with a single phone call, I had drawn a boundary. Tomorrow, their perfect reception would vanish like smoke, and I would no longer pretend to be the grateful guest in a house that bore my name. I closed the folder, slid it back into my suitcase, and let myself savor the quiet. The first step had been taken. The rest would come soon enough, and I was finally ready to meet it head on. The hotel room was dim, the only light a thin strip from the street lamp outside. I had just settled beneath the covers when my phone rattled across the nightstand. The clock read 11:47. I answered without greeting. Allison's voice came through in a shriek. What did you do? The Cavalier called. They said you canceled the reception. 200 guests. Marjorie. 200. I pulled the phone slightly away from my ear. Her outrage filled the small room like smoke. Daniel's voice replaced hers, rough with panic. Mom, please, just call them back. Tell them it was a mistake. We can fix this. I stared at the ceiling, calm in a way I hadn't expected. It wasn't a mistake. The contract was in my name, paid with my money, and since you both made it clear I wasn't welcome, I decided not to pay for your party. Allison's screech returned, louder this time. You can't do this. Everyone's flying in. There's food, flowers, a band. What will they think of us? What they think isn't my concern, I said. You told me to disappear. I did. Along with $14,000 you never once thanked me for spending. The line went silent for a moment. Then Daniel whispered, You're really doing this? Yes, I said. And while we're being honest, the reception wasn't the only expense. Over the last 3 years, I've covered shortfalls you pretended not to notice. Groceries, utility bills, repairs. $42,000. Daniel, did you ever stop to wonder how the lights stayed on when your accounts were empty? No one spoke. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Finally, Allison sputtered. Those were gifts. That's what parents do. No, I corrected softly. That's what I did. And it ends tonight. I let the silence sit before I ended the call. The phone buzzed again within seconds, but I set it face down on the nightstand. Their voices had lost their power over me. Sleep came slowly, but when it did, it carried a strange calm, as if the real reckoning was only just beginning. The knock came just after dawn. Sharp and insistent, I opened the door to find Daniel standing there. Tuxedo shirt wrinkled, tie undone, hair plastered from a restless night. His eyes were rimmed red, and for the first time in years, he looked like the little boy who used to run to me after nightmares. Mom, please, he said, voice raw. Allison hasn't slept. She's hysterical. You've made your point. Just come back. Let's talk. I stepped aside but didn't invite him in. Talk about what you asked me to disappear. You can't take that back because the consequences are uncomfortable. He rubbed his face. It's our wedding. Mom, one night. Why ruin it? I kept my voice steady. This isn't about one night. It's about years of taking without gratitude. Respect doesn't come from money, Daniel. But you've treated me as if my only worth was measured in what I could pay for. I'm not your servant, and I'm not your bank. He dropped into the chair by the desk, shoulders sagging. We can fix this. Just give us time. I looked at him, seeing not only exhaustion, but panic. There is no fixing it with more empty promises. I'm selling my share of the house. His head snapped up. What you can't? Yes, I can. I own 35%. Caroline confirmed it. If you can buy me out, fine. If not, the house goes on the market. The blood drained from his face. We can't afford that. We'll lose everything. You should have thought about that before agreeing when Allison told me to disappear. Actions have consequences. He stared at me, mouth opening and closing. But no words came. At last, he stood, defeated, and left without another plea. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving me alone in the silence I had chosen. I knew the next move had to be formal, and the law would soon speak louder than any apology he might try to muster. Caroline's office sat on the second floor of a brick building near Norfolk's waterfront, all dark wood shelves and the faint smell of coffee. I sat at the long conference table, papers neatly stacked in front of me, waiting for Daniel and Allison to arrive. My hands were steady, my mind clear. They came in late. Allison's face blotchy, Daniel looking worn thin. Caroline rose, greeted them with her usual measured calm, and gestured toward the chairs opposite me. Let's be direct, Caroline began. She spread the documents across the table. Mrs. Calloway is listed as co-borrower and co-owner. Her share amounts to 35% of the property. At current market value, that equals approximately $110,000. Allison gasped as though she'd been slapped. That's impossible. It's our house. Caroline's eyes were steady. Legally, it is her house too. Daniel leaned forward, voice hoarse. Mom, you don't have to do this. Just give us time. We'll make it right. I met his gaze. You had time. Years of it. This isn't punishment. It's balance. Caroline slid 2 documents across the table. Option 1, you buy out your mother's share at market value. Option 2, the house is listed for sale, and proceeds are divided according to ownership. Allison's hands trembled as she pushed the papers back. We can't move. My family is flying in for the wedding. This will ruin us. From the corner, another voice spoke. Patricia Whitford had arrived quietly, her posture elegant as always. Allison, your mother is not your savior this time. She looked at me then, her expression unexpectedly warm. Mrs. Calloway is right to stand her ground. Allison's mouth fell open. Mother, you can't mean that. You could help us. Patricia's tone was even, but firm. I've helped enough. If you want to keep that house, you'll need to earn it. Daniel's shoulders slumped, as if the weight of every unpaid bill had just landed on him. Caroline closed the folder with finality. You have 30 days to decide. After that, we moved to enforce the sale. I gathered my things and stood, the sound of the chair sliding back sharp in the quiet room. For the first time, I saw in their faces the dawning realization that their world was no longer cushioned. 2 weeks later, we gathered again in Caroline's office. This time, Daniel and Allison carried folders stuffed with bank statements and receipts. They spread them across the table as though sheer volume could soften the truth. Their budget told the story better than they could. $400 a month on restaurants, $300 on clothing, mostly Allison's. Gym memberships, streaming services, vacation deposits still sitting on credit cards. They brought in $8,000 a month and spent nearly $12,000. I kept my voice even. You're living a lifestyle that requires someone else to keep filling the gaps. That someone has been me. It stops now. Daniel lowered his head. Allison crossed her arms, cheeks flushed. We've cut back already. This is temporary. No, I said. Temporary was 3 years ago. Here's what I'll offer. Instead of demanding $110,000, I'll let you buy me out for $80. But it comes with conditions. Their eyes lifted warily. First, Allison gets a job within 60 days and holds it for 2 years. Second, one of your cars is sold and the proceeds go toward debt. Third, no new credit cards. No new loans. Fourth, monthly financial check-ins with Caroline. If you violate any of this, the full amount comes due. Allison shook her head sharply. That's humiliating, like being in financial prison. I leaned forward. It's accountability, something both of you have avoided. Daniel rubbed his temples. If this keeps us in the house, we'll do it. He looked at me then, eyes tired but sincere. We accept. Allison swallowed hard but gave a tight nod, her silence louder than protest. Caroline drew up the paperwork, her pen scratching across the page. As they signed, I knew they weren't just buying out my share. They were buying into the first real chance at responsibility they'd ever had, though whether they could live up to it remained to be seen. 6 months later, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment. Coffee steaming in the cool morning air. The senior community overlooked Chesapeake Bay, where sailboats dotted the horizon and gulls wheeled above the water. I had joined the book club, signed up for the hiking group, even let myself be talked into a weekly cooking class. For the first time since Robert's death, my life felt like it belonged to me. Neighbors waved as they passed below, their arms full of gardening tools. I had already volunteered to help plant tomatoes next week. The days filled themselves now with small joys, shared meals, long walks, the quiet comfort of belonging somewhere I hadn't had to purchase. One evening, the phone rang. Allison's voice came through, softer than I remembered. Marjorie, I wanted you to hear it from me. I'm the new office manager at Dr. Russell's dental clinic. It's steady work. I'm proud of it. I let the silence stretch, listening for the arrogance that used to lace her words. Instead, I heard humility, and she continued, her voice catching. I owe you an apology, a real one. I treated you like an ATM, dismissed everything you gave. You forced me to face myself, and I hated you for it. But I see now you were right. I closed my eyes, the weight of her words settling gently. Thank you, Allison. That matters. Would you maybe come to dinner? Nothing fancy. Just spaghetti at home. I hesitated. The old me would have leapt at the offer. The new me measured it differently. Lunch. In public. We'll start there. Relief colored her reply. Of course. Whatever you want. After we hung up, I set the phone aside and breathed deeply of the salt air. I hadn't just reclaimed money or property. I had reclaimed myself. And in doing so, I had given Daniel and Allison something no check could buy the chance to grow without me carrying them. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't disappearing, it's standing firm until others learn to stand. 2. When you stop paying for love, who still chooses to stay.